there's just so much.
You're listening to a Mamma Mia podcast.
Christmas Eve 1992, I was about to go out and get on the grog again, and after 6 weeks off, I would have really had a big night. Mm-hmm. But I just thought, no, I'll just be like what I was. There's no way that I'll be any different than I was 6 weeks ago. So that was the moment where I thought to myself, I'm never going to drink again. And yes, here we are. It was 33 years ago, and I haven't had a drink since.
You'd be pretty hard-pressed to not know the name Dave Hughesy Hughes if you are any kind of Australian. He's been a voice that wakes us up every single day as part of his radio show. He's been keeping us very well entertained, making jokes out of literally anything and everything. He has been dominating Australian stages for decades, filling our households with plenty of laughter. But today, we're not talking to Hughesy the comedian, although maybe a laugh or two in amongst the conversation. Instead, we're peeling back that comedy curtain to talk to Dave, the man who realised that at age 21, alcohol was controlling his life and made the massive call to quit cold turkey before his comedy career even started. He's here to talk about addiction, sobriety, the obsessive personality that drives his success, and what happens when the party stops, but your brain just doesn't. Welcome to Well, Dave Hughes.
Claire, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I wanted to take us back in time because not many of us knew little Hughesy, what he was like before alcohol and cigarettes started off his career in addiction. What was it like growing up for you? Because for the majority of us who grew up in, say, the 70s, 80s and 90s in particular, having a drink, smoking cigarettes, it was cultural. It was like what we did. It was identity. It was how we socialised. Was that true for you too?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a household where both parents smoked and drank beer. I was born in the end of 1970, so 70s, 80s, it was a time in Australia where smoking cigarettes and drinking beer or alcohol was very much what it appeared everyone did. So I was immersed in that, I suppose, as a young person, but saw the downside of it as well, but that didn't stop me drinking myself. So I probably started drinking, alcohol when I was probably 14 or 15 and smoking cigarettes probably, I didn't smoke for that long, but nicotine is so addictive. And so once you start, it's very hard to stop. And that's for anyone really, not just people prone to addiction, I think. So they say nicotine's much stronger, it's much more addictive than heroin. I've never had heroin. I know the nicotine is very strong. So definitely a childhood surrounded by a cigarette smoke and a beer. And I got involved in that myself at an early age.
So when you are taking up drinking as a teenager, did it start off like the majority of us would have where it's like binge drinking with mates on the weekend? And then when does it start turning into more regular than that?
Yeah, look, it was definitely binge drinking, again, from the age of 14 or 15. Look, I was never a 7-day-a-week drunk, no doubt about that. But whenever I did drink, I always lost control. So, I would start my session and then my eyes would open and it'd be the next day and I'd wonder what happened to the last, 12, I'd slowly think, hang on, I can't remember anything after 8 p.m. last night. What did I do? The real problem for me was the loss of control that alcohol brought me. And it was dangerous, basically, as well. It was certainly something that would affect me a day or two after as well. It just really messes with your thought process and your emotions, really. So for some people, not everyone, obviously, but for people like myself who I think were just predisposed to it, I believe.
Do you remember those times where you talk about being blackout drunk, where people would then come to you, a week later or days later and fill you in on the things that you were doing when you were in that blackout phase? Were you doing things that were dangerous to yourself or harmful to others?
Yeah, mainly dangerous to myself, really. I was certainly never a violent drunk, which is good. I mean, I would, be a smart-ass drunk and get punched in the face and maybe try to punch back, but I would never start it, basically. So, definitely people would say, oh, yeah, you were so out of control or you were ridiculous, or a number of times we'd wake up in the police cells, basically, as well. So you're like, oh, God, what did I do to get here? So, again, nothing that was ever violent, but they would lock me up for my own safety, really. So, you'd be asleep on the road and the police would see you or something. So, Yeah, so, I mean, just dangerous and ridiculously dangerous. And the gain was very minimal.
And was it those experiences, waking up in the drunk tank, was there a moment where you thought, I've got to stop doing this to myself?
I stopped at 21, actually. I had, been on one of a number of sort of binges, I suppose, where I was getting locked up quite a bit. At the time, I'd quit university and I was like sort of lost, I suppose, or just anxious, and alcohol was a massive part of that. Just couldn't focus. And I remember reading once, if you lose memory, you're killing part of your brain. And I'm thinking that's every time I drink. So, I did have a healthy ego at the time, as in I thought I had a good brain and I didn't want to ruin my brain. So there was a number of things that made me stop. And also growing up with alcohol in the house, and I didn't feel like it was a choice for my dad. Definitely. It was like a compulsion, basically. So, so every day of living with that as a child, knowing your dad's going to be drunk and that's going to mess with his moods big time. And that's stressful for kids growing up in that situation because, you just know, where it ends. It ends up. Dad was never physically abusive, but he was out of control for a number of years, as in emotionally abusive, definitely. And so, but he would wake up the next day and just not remember what he'd done or how he'd yelled or how he'd stressed everyone out. I imagine he didn't remember it, or if he did, he didn't want to acknowledge it. So it was never acknowledged the next day, sort of thing. So, and that's not a fun way to grow up, basically. So, that was part of my stopping drinking, was like I didn't want to repeat that cycle. So
that's such an interesting thing that at the age of 21, when you're culturally, it's ingrained to drink with your buddies and that's how you socialize and that's just what everybody does. For you to have the kind of presence of mind to say, I don't want to repeat the cycle. It's really difficult to break cycles like that. How did you come to that decision and then start the process of stopping that? You must have been very self-aware as a young man.
I was, in a way. I was self-obsessed as well. So I had a dream of doing something with my life. So, but I did have that sort of thing about, oh God, I think I can. My mind is powerful. Like everyone's mind is powerful. I was like reading self-help books even back then as I was drinking. Like you choose your own future. But like, we all create our own reality basically. So part of me knew that I could do this and that would be my decision and it was possible. So I was a weird mix of crazy, messy drunk and Dalai Lama basically. So I had that going. When I actually stopped drinking was the Sunday afternoon. I think I had my last drink and it was like, I was with a mate who was a big drinker as well. We used to drink together basically and then try to drag as many other mates in as we could. And we'd always try to get people drinking. If they weren't drinking, we'd almost, get them in a headlock and pour alcohol down their throat so they could join the party. So I was definitely one of the leaders of that sort of crew. I remember this Sunday afternoon, I'd only had a couple. So my last day of drinking, I drove this friend home. He lived in a farmhouse actually. And I wasn't really a drink driver, so I would have been under 0.05. And I just said to him, I'm going to stop drinking till Christmas. That's what I said, actually. And this was in November. And Christmas Eve was always a big night of drinking for us. So I stopped for probably 6 weeks. It was hard, but I had managed it. And then I got to Christmas Eve and I thought that was the real decision. In Christmas Eve 1992, I was about to go out and get on the grog again. And after 6 weeks off, I would have really had a big night. Mm-hmm. But I just thought, no, I'll just be like what I was. If I drink tonight, there's no way that I'll be any different than I was 6 weeks ago. So that was the moment. It was a moment in Christmas Eve 1992 where I thought to myself, I'm never going to drink again. And yes, here we are. It was 33 years ago and I haven't had a drink since. It was longer than that, 34 years. Yeah, so that was the moment. And I accepted it straight away. It was weird, but I just accepted it. It's like a weird, nah, that's it. And it was, I never did AA or any self-help. I never went and saw anyone about that or anything. I just knew I'd made the right decision and it became easier over time. And the funny thing is that, from Warrnambool in Victoria is where I'm from. It's a country town of, I think it's 30,000 people now. It might have been 25,000 then. I did at the time the biggest per capita drinking population in at least Victoria. I don't know if it was Australia, but right up there in Australia. So, but my friends who were drinkers and who I used to encourage to drink a lot accepted it straight away and I just became the designated driver.
That's so weird because that's not usual experience for people, young people especially, who give up, because you would then presume that you would in turn become the person that they put in a headlock and try and force beer down their throat if you've been part of that culturally beforehand. But you reckon your mates were just like, nah, he's off it, and that's enough for them?
Maybe it took them a little while, but not long. So there was not much pressure at all. I mean, maybe they had seen, they saw how messy I used to get. Some of them must have. The ones who kept themselves reasonably conscious in our drinking sessions, they would have seen how messy I used to get. So, yeah, there was not a lot of pressure after that moment, but I was ready for it anyway. The harder part actually wasn't those guys, my schoolmates, really, who became my drinking buddies. And I'm still friends with now. I was home in my hometown the other day and caught up with a number of them. So it's just, we laughed just like we did back in the 80s. The hardest thing for me actually was that I moved from Warrnambool at the end of that year, actually, after I just stopped drinking. So the end of 1992, I moved to Perth. So I sort of got away from my whole sort of structure, my whole community. I left them behind in a way and was over there in Perth with only a few friends from Warrnambool. And then I went and played footy at the Scarborough Footy Club, which is a beachside suburb of Perth. That was the hardest thing, actually, to turn up to a new football club, AFL football club, and at the age of 22 and meeting people for the first time, telling them you don't drink. That was hard because that was like, people like, who is this weirdo, basically, where my friends who I grew up with already knew who I was.
When women give up drinking, we have to preface saying, look, I'm not drinking, I'm not pregnant. It's because of X, Y, and Z, right? So you don't have to deal with that. But do you have a prepared response back then when you're introducing yourself to new people who would presume that you would want to drink?
Yeah, I still have that response. People even now don't realise I don't drink. So back then, if they handed me a drink, I'd go, look, nah, it's no good for me. I'm no good at drinking. I just get too out of control, so I just stopped. So, yeah, so that was my response, which is just the truth, basically. So it took quite a while to, I suppose, get accepted to that new football club, basically, or I felt it did at least. So, yeah, so that was harder than the people who did know me, basically. So, yeah, but I think times have changed a lot around drinking. But, yeah, back then that was tricky. It was tricky, but I knew I was doing the right thing, and I was feeling gradually better as each month went past not drinking. So I was getting mentally stronger, like every day almost. So nothing was going to take me back to drinking, basically. When I was in Perth, I actually decided if I could dance sober, I didn't need alcohol. So I would dance. I would go to nightclubs and dance, like on my own. I was certainly not being surrounded by, women, but I would dance sober. And I got to the point that it felt fine. I don't dance sober now, really, to be honest. But back then, I was determined to dance my way through this sobriety. So, so I did. I spent many nights dancing on my own at nightclubs, and people must have thought I was insane. No way they would have thought I was sober.
What were you telling yourself in your head when you're on the dance floor? Like, and you're looking around, are you looking at people look at you, or are you just in your own mind just going, nah, I'm going to do this?
I started to think I was a good dancer. So I was, but I, if people see me, I try to dance on The Masked Singer, like when that was on for 5 seasons, they would disagree with that. So, yeah. So, but in my mind, I was dancing well. I'd love to see a video of myself back then to see whether I actually was moving okay or whether I was moving like,
Maybe you were fabulous.
Yeah, or was I moving like Helene off Seinfeld? So her dancing, which has amused me. So, yeah, but I did. I would go out and I'd get late for nightclubs. I was always better talking to women. I had much more luck as a sober person of flirting or getting some attention. And you know what? An interesting thing actually was back in those days. So I'm 22, 23. I'm in Perth. I'm at nightclubs. And I would tell girls that I don't drink, and that would actually give me respect. Girls would see a strength in that, which I was like, God, this is actually a good thing to say to women I don't drink. So, so it actually, when I did drink, I would get so drunk. I remember I was working at the local show in Warrnambool once, like this, I was probably at the age of 20. I was selling raffle tickets to win a Bart Simpson doll. So that was
amazing.
And so a girl walked past one day and I said, do you want to buy a ticket to buy Bart Simpson? And I was having a bit of fun with it and, getting a laugh or whatever. And she said, I didn't know you could speak. I said, what do you mean? She said, I see you every weekend out of the pubs and you aren't able to speak. And I thought, oh, God, maybe that's why I'm not picking up. I can't even speak. So, so I can tell to anyone watching this who thinks it's going to make it harder to meet someone, I have the exact opposite experience where it was easier for me to meet romantic partners being sober than it was drunk.
Well, as someone who used to be a young woman who frequented nightclubs and met men there, I can understand that level of respect because women navigating young drunk men is often quite difficult. So I can imagine that someone hearing that would be like, oh, this is refreshing. I won't have to deal with X, Y, and Z now because of that.
Yeah, so at the time I didn't realize, well, I did realize after a while, but yes, as a drinker, I didn't realize that there's a power in sobriety which can actually lead to instant respect rather than, instant derision.
Parenting podcasts can be a bit earnest. Parenting Out Loud is not that podcast.
This person who I may not agree with politically is trying to talk about integrating children, not just into his professional life, but into public life.
I have referred to myself as one and done. That article did make me rethink the term.
It took about 11 seconds for this to go viral.
Oh God, is this the ejaculate one? That is deranged and I love it.
Parenting changes the way you see everything. Parenting Out Loud takes the big conversations of the moment and puts them through that filter.
Because if parents are thinking about it, we're talking about it.
Parenting Out Loud. Listen weekly wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, let's fast forward a little bit because you have chosen a career starting out in stand-up comedy, which is a notoriously boozy career choice. It's late night, it's at clubs, there's people drinking. What was it like for you to step into that world as a sober person?
I don't think I would have started stand-up comedy if I had kept drinking. I don't think I would have had the mental capacity for it, to be honest. So I don't reckon I would have been able to be in control of my emotions enough to navigate my way through that world. So maybe I would have, but yeah, part of me thinks I wouldn't have had the gumption to get it done, basically. So yeah, because I'd already completely accepted I didn't drink, it wasn't that hard to deal with people in comedy clubs. I mean, yeah, so it was really easy, actually. That wasn't an issue for me. So, I mean, yeah, I was surrounded by alcohol when I was out, and I have been for the last 30 years, basically every night. Well, not every night, but many nights of the week, which I still do performing, and most people are having a drink. It's just not an issue.
How do you feel about it morally? Because this is such an individual decision for you and yourself and your health and your mental health. When you're working stage at a club, part of the whole idea is that the people who go there spend a certain amount of money over the bar and that they are drinking in order to celebrate or enjoy their experience. How do you feel about it morally from that perspective?
I suppose I haven't really blamed alcohol itself. I think some people shouldn't drink. That's my opinion. And I've said this to a number of people over the years who've ignored me. Well, I don't say it very often, and I'm not like, I've had moments of standing on my soapbox trying to tell other people how to live, which doesn't really work because no one wants to hear it. So I'm not really worried about the morals of alcohol or selling alcohol, but I just think some people, I think it's in your DNA and they shouldn't drink. And I see them when I'm out sometimes and I think that person shouldn't drink. So that person loses control. I see myself back as a 20-year-old. And some people are like, in their 40s or 50s and they're still like that. I actually I don't know how they've navigated life, honestly. No idea. But they do. But yeah, I think it must be so much harder. But yeah, so I don't blame alcohol. So I just think some people shouldn't get around it because it's not built for them.
Has anyone ever listened when you've been on your soapbox?
Look, I get some people message me and saying, you helped me stop drinking, just through your attitude. And I heard you talk about it. So look, I have had that. I have had school friends who've stopped, actually. One stopped and he started again, but he stopped for a number of years. But yeah, so he seems to be going okay. So yeah, I'm certainly not someone to judge other people, hopefully now. I mean, I've had my moments like that. I mean, I was probably a bit of a wet blanket at many family functions after I stopped drinking. I remember writing letters to my parents back when I was living in Perth, just probably having a bit of a go at them for my dad, basically, for drinking too much. Because I think it really can. If you are addicted to it, it can limit your life and you don't see it as much of life as you could, basically, because you're a slave to it.
Did you ever really have a conversation with your dad about that?
Not really, to be honest. It's like this, so it's a funny one. He never really, he knew I didn't drink and I think he respected it, but I never really heard much about, it's not like I don't know if I ever have good on you for stopping drinking from Dad, ever, to be honest. Or maybe I did, but I can't remember it. Then Mum would be annoyed as well. She wouldn't want to. They're both past now, but So I'm probably less likely to even have this conversation I'm having now with you if Mum was still alive, because
Really?
she would get annoyed at me for mentioning Dad's drinking. So probably that generation spoke less about such things and probably, kept things more quiet and didn't want other people to know about their own issues or their problems. Maybe it's a generational thing, but it's much easier for me to talk about being sober and talk about, my family history of alcohol now that both my parents are passed.
What was it like for you to give up smoking? You were talking at the start here about how addictive nicotine is, and you did have an experience later on when someone handed you a vape. I believe it was an election night.
Yeah, it was the night Albanese, the night the Labor got back in power, actually. Yeah, so whenever that was. Nicotine is just so addictive, and it's like that's an all-day thing as well. So I stopped smoking and drinking and smoking bongs at the same time, basically. So just before I turned 22, which is, but cigarettes that was really hard to stop. And then when I got back on vaping at the age of 50 or whatever, I got hooked straight away again. And so you see people with the vapes in the street. I'm probably more still like, oh, gee, rather than alcohol, something I never want to touch again. Honestly, I just don't want to touch it again. But the vaping, the nicotine is something where I see someone, I don't think, gee, I would like to have a go at that. But I know that if I do, I'll just be back on it. And that's all day. That starts as soon as you wake up.
Yeah.
The desire to smoke or to have nicotine in your system dominates every moment of your waking day, basically. So that's hard. And I see kids on it. My kids aren't doing it, thank God. My son's got mates who are hooked on vaping at the age of like 13 or 14, and I just get it. Absolutely get it. I sympathise, I empathise and think, I know that's a really hard thing to give up. So, God, if you could keep it out of your kids' hands, you would, but it's pretty hard to police them 24 hours a day. But nicotine's so addictive.
So you just mentioned before about your kids' mates are vaping, and I've even had, like, my daughter's not done it, but we've had notes home from school that kids have been caught vaping on the bus on the trip home, and we're talking primary school kids now, so it's getting younger and younger. What level of concern do you have for your kids in two ways? One, that they're going to pick up a habit that so many kids have right now, but also due to the fact that they are your children, that they might have inherited maybe some of your addictive traits?
Yeah, it is something I have thought about. My wife's the complete opposite, the least addictive person, I think, in like certainly substance-wise that I've ever met. She's like never even thought about smoking a cigarette, not because, she's worried about getting addicted, just because she just knows it's stupid. I've seen her drunk. We've been together 23 years, and I think I've seen her properly drunk once. So she's someone who alcohol's not even a consideration. She could go 3 months without having a sip of alcohol and not even notice, which I'm shocked by, to be honest. So hopefully they've got enough of her genes in them to it not be a problem. My son said recently he thinks he's a bit like me. So, I know he has got drunk before. He's 16, but he seems to be going okay, but it's definitely something I'll keep an eye on. So, but you can't force someone not to drink. He's definitely not as bad as I was, 100% at the same age. It's definitely something for me to keep an eye on, because they have not seen me ever drink. So they're not going to repeat anything they've seen from me, at least. It's actually probably a good experiment in nature versus nurture. The nurture has been no alcohol at all, really.
Also, too, the way that you rebelled against your dad for his drinking, are they going to rebel against you for your not drinking? That's what kids do.
Well, exactly. So again, I'm not like I don't drink, you don't drink. So so he'll make his own decision, and my daughters will make their own decisions as well. But I hope they've got more of their mother's genes, so it's not as hard a thing to wrestle with as it was for me.
Would you say that you have an addictive kind of personality? I know that when we were both working at a radio station at the same time, that your colleagues were very concerned about the amount of energy drink that you were consuming, and that you felt like you couldn't stop consuming that energy drink. Would you say that's part of your personality, and it's really just your mental strength that's enabled you to kind of keep a lid on those things?
Probably. Yeah, I probably have a brain that just goes, which a lot of people do, which is just go, go, go. Be careful with energy drinks as well, because back in the day I was doing like a project 4 nights a week, I think, and I was doing a TV footy show on Saturday night, and then I was doing stand-up comedy, and I was doing breakfast radio every morning. So
did you sleep at all in that period of time?
I'll drink a lot of caffeine, way too much caffeine. So I'd come home from the TV studio at like 8 o'clock at night and I'd already had, I'd had so many energy drinks or coffees or both. And it was just crazy. So my teeth were falling out left, right, and centre. But I'd sit on the desk of the project and then another tooth would fall out. And I'm like, what's going on here? So, but it just tears through your enamel when you're on the energy drinks. So, yeah, I don't really do the energy drinks much anymore, but I still drink coffee in the morning, that's for sure. I love coffee.
So, yeah, the question was more about whether your personality is inherently addictive. Like you've always talked about how committed you are to work, and you've just said like you were doing, 4 jobs at once that essentially took up 24 hours of your day. Is that in your DNA, you think?
I think it probably is. People say you're addicted to work. I am to a degree, I suppose, where I would not say no to any opportunities, and I would run any opportunities I did get till they ran completely out of steam. I suppose that is addictive, but in a way that's led to my family being financially comfortable. So some addictions maybe you can leave because they're being productive, I suppose.
More silver linings than not, maybe?
Yes. So, but again, over the years, I've given up so much. I've given up drinking. I've given up smoking, drugs. I've given up meat. I'm a complete vegan now. So I've had many things to give up over the years. But you know what? The ego is something I think dropping my ego, and even talking about it sounds like I haven't dropped it. It sounds like I'm bragging, and I sort of am. But yeah, if you get your mind around the fact that your ego is where your misery comes from, which I have completely got my mind around that, and dropping that has been a really good thing to get rid of, basically, or attempt to get rid of. So my addiction to my own bullshit and my own, look at what sort of hero I am, has been probably one of the most misery-inducing addictions, basically. Just stopping that, constantly thinking about myself, has been the most relaxing I've ever done in my entire life. People have said I'm addicted to giving things up. But yes, maybe I am addicted to that.
The program that you're speaking to right now, we are predominantly speaking to women. It might be young women who have young men in their lives. It might be women who have young sons. What advice would you have for them if they can look at their child or their partner or whoever and see that addiction creeping in? How do we help young men stop, or at least start the process?
I would say to anyone, once you accept that it's a problem and you accept that you shouldn't do it, if you accept you're not going to do it, it sounds like I'm talking AA now, but I've never went to AA, but acceptance is big. Like you accept that if you jump off a cliff, you're going to die, basically. So, and I know it sounds dramatic, but if you accept that drinking is going to lead to a reduction in your life's joy, if you accept that, well, then you won't do it because you don't want to have a reduction in life's joy. But, for me, oh, God, these days I say to my kids, I'm not like never drink. I'm not like that. I'm like, I really want people to know, whether it's my own children or anyone, just realize that life itself is enough. Like just being alive is enough. And just if you can realize that it's amazing to exist, then you sort of don't need all that other stuff, I suppose. So I'm big on trying not to think about myself at all these days. Like it's almost the addiction of yourself, the addiction of, I've spoken about this quite a bit recently, but my addiction into trying to think of myself as some sort of legend or some bullshit. I don't know. It's like I've spent a long time thinking about myself, and my own ego has been the problem probably all along. So getting past your ego and trying to get kids to get past their egos and go, guys, if you're not thinking about yourself, if you're just like looking out of the world's amazing, in my opinion. And people go to me, oh, well, it's easy for you. You've got money or you've got some success or whatever, but I don't know what to say to that.
I mean, because it's true, but also it doesn't make you non-human. If you have money, yes, you're still having a human experience, right?
Oh, yeah. And a lot of the richest people in the world are the most depressed. So it's like, I know it's easy to say if you've got money that you say money doesn't make you happy, but just look at the mental struggles of bloody James Packer, who's been a billionaire since he was born. And you look at James and think, gee, he's having a tough life, because he is, because the money's not making him, it appears to not making him happy. I think he's improved a lot lately, but so you can really be on a downward spiral and be really rich. So yeah, it's not really money. It's not going to make you happy, basically.
Does it give you a little bit of faith in humanity when you hear stories about how younger people, younger Aussies in particular, are not drinking like we did when we were younger? Like they are really doing things differently. Not to say that they don't drink, because they still do, but just not in the ways that we did.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. So, yeah, apparently it's really down. Well, I'm 55, so, yeah, you grew up with binge drinking just being part of the culture. But, yeah, it's great that it doesn't seem to be anymore. But we've swapped that addiction for the phone addiction, haven't we? So that's part of it is that no one can be bothered looking up from their phone.
How are you going with technology? Are you addicted to your phone?
I'm not perfect. Yeah, and that, again, the tech companies know what they're doing. There's no doubt about that. So they're feeding into people's obsessive personalities. So I'm not too bad, but I really need to more, though. Will do. Just look up, look up. And once you make friends with silence, the joy in that, in finding those moments of being silent is something to strive towards.
On that note, Hughesy, thank you for speaking to us today about your life and the roles that addiction has played in it. We appreciate you doing this, and hopefully we can all maybe look up for a minute and not think about ourselves too much.
Let's stay in the moment. I want us to be addicted to staying in the moment. This moment's the only moment we'll ever have. So I want to be addicted to breathing.
Well,
I sort of am. We
all sort of are, I think.
We are, aren't we?
In a very passive way.
We breathe without even thinking about it. Be aware that a miracle's happening in your body every second.
Every second of every day. Hughesy, Thank you so much, mate. We really appreciate you spending some time with us. Thank you.
Good on you, Claire.
Cheers. Next week, we're taking the addiction discussion to the other side of the experience. So this is for anyone who has someone in their life who's struggling with anything from alcohol through drug dependency or any kind of addiction, including gambling, shopping, all those kinds of things, the whole spectrum. How to confront a loved one who might be struggling, how to help them, and also very important, when to walk away, because you've got to protect yourself in that too. So we'll catch you for your appointment this time next week. Well is produced by me, Claire Murphy, and our senior producer, Sally Best, with audio production by Scott Stronach and video production by Julian Rosario. And if this topic has raised some concerns for you, please contact your GP or call the National Alcohol and Other Drug Hotline on 1800 250 015. Mamma Mia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we've recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and the Wonnarua people. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.